year 7, just trying to see who we've got coming in. I'm going to keep an eye on the numbers. This week we are looking at specialised cells, and on the screen you should see 3 questions. Question 1 down in the bottom left, question 2 at the top, and then question 3 over here. And I will be doing those as polls once I can see we've got everyone in. I hope you're all well. Once I've got everyone in, I'll talk through a few things, like the raised hand, the questions and the polls, just so that we can make sure everyone's good. We're up to about 91, 93. I should say as well, I've got Miss McKinley and Mr. Lamb here to answer any questions, should you need them to. We are up to 95. And it seems to have stopped, so I'm going to get started. First thing I want to say is some of you have had issues with polls, and there is 3 little dots somewhere on your screen. And if you find that and click on it, there should be an option to enable polls. Now, don't worry if you can't get it to work. The polls are just for a little bit of fun with it, and you can still see the questions, and I will read out the multiple choice options that you have for them. In terms of the raised hand, it doesn't actually do anything. It just lets me know you're raising your hand. So if you have questions, please direct them to the Q&A where Miss McKinley and Mr. Lamb will be answering them for you. Today's webinar is going to be on specialised cells, and it's one of my favourite topics. I will be running through it quite quickly, just because I want to get the content covered and introduce the lesson task, and hopefully have a bit of time at the end for a Q&A so that we can go through any questions you might have got through it. Okay, I'm going to start with the polls now. So the first one you can see is the one at the bottom. Bear with me a second. I'm going to launch my first poll. Okay, so the question at the bottom has a big red arrow, and it says, what is this arrow pointing to? And the options you've got are the void, nothing, the cytoplasm, or the nucleus. And I can see you are proper speedy on that, and you're all going for it. You're all amazing. So, woo! Just watching. I can see a few of you have joined a little bit later. We're just starting on the first starter questions, so you're all good. You haven't missed anything. You're all awesome. And do remember this is getting recorded, so you can watch it back anyway. So if I do go a bit fast, you'll have options to catch up. I'm going to give it another 5 or 6 seconds on this poll for you, just because I can see we've got 80% have voted. Okay. And I'm going to end it in 2 seconds and 1 second. There we go. And I'm going to share the result just to show you that 82% of you got that it's cytoplasm. And hopefully you remember from last week, the big dark blob is the nucleus. And the void and nothing were just me being silly. Okay. I'm going to go straight into the next poll. Okay. And I'm just going to move it out the way, or try to. I might be covering myself up a bit, I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to launch poll. Oh, hang on. And it's linked with this top question here. Where does photosynthesis take place? Is it in the roots, in the chloroplasts, in lamps, or in glow sticks? And again, you guys are super speedy off the mark. So is it in the roots, in the chloroplasts, in lamps, or in glow sticks? Okay. Going to give it a little bit longer, just for the last few of you to answer. Doopy-doopy-doo, meow, 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 meow. I should make bunny noises, but I don't know what bunny noises are, so you'll have to deal with meowing. Okay, and I'm going to end that one there. And nicely, we've got 84% of you recognised it's going to be in the chloroplasts. The thing I would always say on the roots bit is the roots are underground, so they don't see much light, so they won't have anything to do with photosynthesis. Photo meaning light and synthesis meaning make. I'm just going to share the result because I realised I didn't. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to move to the third and last question on my starter slide, which is going back a bit. It's to do with microscopes. So a while back you would have done in your classrooms this little equation. So I equals A times M, and what does the M stand for? Is it magnification, metallic, a minute, or is it maths? And again, super speedy. And you're all doing really well, and it's nice seeing you engage with these questions. I'm just watching the numbers go. Going to give it a few more seconds just to give the last few of you a chance to answer. Okay. And I'm going to count down to 3 and then I'm going to end it. So 3, 2, and 1. And there we go. And I'm going to share results, and amazingly a lot of you have recognised that it's magnification, and this was something we did a while ago, so I'm really impressed with that, so well done. Okay, and that's the last of the polls for the moment, so I am just going to close it off. There we go. Hopefully that's off your screen, and I'm going to move on to letting you know what we're actually looking at today. So we're going to look at specialised cells, and there's loads of them, and I've only picked a few of them, but there are more, and you'll see that on some of the slides. But my main thing is that you'll all be able to recall some examples. So if someone said to you, name a specialised cell, you'd be able to tell me some examples, just their names. And then some of you will be able to say how they're adapted to their function, so what are their key features. And then you might be able to say, well, that's this type of cell, and that will be found here based on the key features of it. And that one will make sense, and I'll talk through it a bit as we go through. You'll also notice again with biology, we've got lots of words here. Some of them are quite complicated spellings, like this one here, ciliated epithelial cell. Don't worry too much about that. Again, if you're worried about spelling, you could practice them in your own time if you want to, write them out 3 times, include them in a sentence, that sort of thing. Okay, going to move it on. So I have said the word specialised quite a few times there, and I haven't actually said what it is. So I like using this little slide here. And you can see on the board, I've got a policeman, a judge, a soldier, and a doctor, and they are all specialised. They have jobs or roles that have specific skills, and they're adapted to do those. We wouldn't expect right now for a doctor to do the job of the policeman or for the soldier to be a doctor. They are specialised for what they actually do. It's specific for their job, the set of skills they've trained and learned. And cells are pretty much the same. They are specialised and they have a job that they are designed to do. Okay, and I'm just going to introduce you to my nice little adaptation here. So specialised cells are ones that are better adapted to make them better at their job. Okay, so policemen are adapted and they've learned to be better as policemen. We have cells that do the same one. And there's a few examples on the board here. I'm going to talk through some of them. This one at the top looks a bit weird. It's a ciliated epithelial cell. I like that one because it sounds really funny. We've then got a fat cell, got a nerve cell, we've got a sperm cell, got an egg cell, a red blood cell, and down here we've got a rod cell. Okay, now I'm not going to talk through all of these. As I said, I've just picked a few. And as I said, I am going quite quickly just because I want to get through the content, and you can watch this all back if you want to. So, first cell I'm going to introduce you to is one of the ones that's really important, and this is the red blood cells. Okay, now they have this funny concave shape. That's what we actually refer to it as concave. And the way I like to remember their shape is these little sweeties down at the bottom. I quite like them, but they have the same shape. They're quite concave and they dip in the middle. So that's one feature of a red blood cell. The adaptation of them is they don't actually have a nucleus. They have no DNA in them. And that's so they can maximise the amount of oxygen that they can carry around the body so that your body can perform functions and do really well. So that's the key main things to them, that they have no nucleus and they have this little concave shape. And you can see them there in this picture. And then this is just my little cartoon drawing. So that's the main key take homes. So they transport oxygen, have a concave shape and no nucleus at all. Okay, as I said, I'm going speedy. I'm going to jump to my next one. Okay, we've got the sperm cells now. These are awesome. I really like their tails. Okay, and I've got 4 pictures. I've got some microscope one here, just so you can see them if they were under a microscope. And then we've got this little one down here. And then at the top here, we've got a labeled one. Now, these have got lots of features that allow them to do their job. First of all, they've got a tail. It's a cell that can swim, and they wiggle their little tail, and it allows them to swim so they can meet the egg cell and fertilize it, which is really, really good. You'll also notice they've got mitochondria, which we've come across before. Mitochondria release energy through respiration, and for them to be able to swim, they're going to need that energy. So they have lots of mitochondria to allow them to do this. And then the last bit they've got is up in this little head of them. They've got enzymes which can break down the egg wall to allow them to deliver the nucleus, which has got the DNA in it. Okay, so that's quite speedy going through that. But the key take-homes: tail for swimming, mitochondria to release energy, and then enzymes in the head to break down the egg. And that would be the sperm cell. Right, by the way, I've got some polls after these few, so just warning you. Right, there's the next one. I think they look quite funky. These are the ciliated epithelial cells. And this is just a cartoon drawing. This is what they would look like in the body. And basically, they've got lots of tiny, tiny hairs. And those little tiny hairs, if you notice my hands, sort of wave. And it's how we get mucus from our lungs up so that we can cough and get it off our lungs. And it's also how eggs move down the fallopian tube. So these actually wave and move things along, which is really super duper awesome. They're like down your trachea to get all that mucus up. So when you've got a cold, you can cough it up and get rid of it. And these little hairs beat it up. So they are awesome. So tiny, tiny hairs, and their job is to move. They're specialised to move things. Right, moving on to my next one. Nerve cells. Now, nerve cells are what allow me to talk to you. They are all in our brains and all around our bodies. And you can see I've got a little picture of one here and one here. Their key thing is that they're very long, and you should be able to see that in all these pictures. And they send electrical messages around the body, or electrical impulses around the body, so we know how to react and how to move. And they are super duper awesome. And they're very long and very thin, but the key take home is they send electrical impulses. Right, I think I've got one more. Yep, muscle cells. Now you've already done muscle tissues, so the bit on the right here, types of muscle cell, skeletal, cardiac, smooth, you should recognise from back when you did muscles, but these are made up of tissues and they're made up of the cells. And the key things with muscle cells is that they are able to contract and relax, as shown in this little picture. And also they've got lots of mitochondria. Again, they require energy in order for them to be able to do this. Okay, so lots and lots of mitochondria there to allow them to be able to contract and relax and allow your muscles to move and for you to act. All right, I know I went super speedy there, so I'm hoping you've all kept up. Here is just a little table to summarise some of them, and you'll notice there's also the cone cell and the fat cell on there, just because I like to give you some extra information. I'm not going to run through this now, just because it's there for you to have extra information. Hopefully you followed what I was saying about the sperm and the red blood cell, the nerve cell. And I'm going to move on because I want to introduce some polls. So I had a bit of fun here. I decided to do a what am I? Okay, and the first one is I have a long tail. So if you bear with me, I'm going to launch my little poll, and is it going to be A, B, C or D? So there we go, that should pop in the middle. So what am I? I have a long tail. Am I a red blood cell, a snow leopard, a sperm cell or a nerve cell? And I put snow leopards in because they do have really long tails, which is awesome. Not quite where we're going through though. I may have just given away a bit of a tip there. Again, it's nice to see you. Got a few more I've added. When we started this, you'll be able to catch the beginning of it when you watch the videos. Nice to see you all. Going to give it a few more seconds just so the last few can have a go at answering. So I have a long tail. What am I? Am I A, red blood cell, B, snow leopard, C, sperm cell, or D, a nerve cell? Okay, and I'm going to end that one in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and 88% of you got sperm cell and 10% of you, you're all right, snow leopards do have a long tail, but because we're learning about specialised cells, the answer that I wanted there was sperm cell. Okay, excellent. Right, just going to close that. I've got another one coming up, so bear with me. There we go. So this one I've got, I'm very long and thin and I conduct messages. What am I? I have forgot to stop sharing. There we go. So I'm just going to launch this poll for you. And launching now. I've put the numbers in the wrong way, but snail is A, muscle cell is B, ciliated cell is C, and nerve cell at the bottom is D. So I'm very long and thin, and I conduct messages. What am I? And I'd like to apologise for my spelling error in the poll question where I put thing rather than thin. That's me not triple checking when I wrote it in. Apologies. Okay, so I'm very long and thin, and I conduct messages. What am I? Am I a snail, a muscle cell, a ciliated cell, or a nerve cell? And I can see most of you have answered it, so I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to end the poll, and excellent. So 95% of you recognise that that was the nerve cell, so well done you guys. Stop sharing the result. And I'm going to jump to my next one, which is what am I? I have no nucleus. And bear with me because I have just put the poll somewhere. There we go. And I'm just going to load that one up. Okay, and I'm launching now. So what am I? I have no nucleus. Am I a red blood cell, a sperm cell, a ciliated cell, or SpongeBob SquarePants? Again, you guys are answering super quick. Got 87, 90, 95. Once we get to 100, I'm going to do my 3, 2, 1 countdown. There we are, we're nearly there. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to end that poll there. And 78% of you got the red blood cell. We've got 13 with ciliated and 8 of you with SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, SpongeBob should, I would hope, have nucleuses because of cells and control centres. But I'd have to research that further. The answer I was looking for was red blood cell. And I'd like to remind you, they have no nucleus, so they can get maximum oxygen into them. And that was the first one I did. So I can see why a few of you might have thought the last one was the ciliated. Okay, little tip for you as well though, if you look at the picture, it's got nucleus, so it actually labels it. It's just a little tip for the future. Sometimes you can see the answers in pictures. Okay, right. Here is your little lesson task, number 1, for after the webinar is done, and I've just done a dragon match. So you can see down the side here, we've got red blood cell, sperm cell, ciliated cell, nerve cell, muscle cell, and then I've got 5 boxes with descriptions. Your job in your lesson will be to just grab a box and drag it and match it next to the right picture. So you'll have to read the information in the boxes, and then you just drag it and match it to the correct picture. And then your teachers will check that you've hopefully got those right. I'm going to move on from that one because I want to move on to specialised plant cells. So the ones I just looked at were animal cells, okay, and they're specifically found in animals like cats, dogs, humans. These ones are plant cells, okay, and the main ones that we've got are the palisade cell at the top left here, the root hair cell here, and then we've got the xylem and we've got the phloem. And I'm going to very quickly run through each of those, and then there'll be another little poll like we just did with the what am I. Okay, so moving on to our first one, we have got the palisade cell. And I've been a bit nicer here, and I've put the information on the slide so you can read along as I chat through it. Now, these contain chloroplasts, which were in the starter, and you've already come across in plant cells. Chloroplasts are where photosynthesis happens, and as it says here, they contain chlorophyll, which is the green pigment needed for photosynthesis. Okay, they are normally found in layers on leaves and the outer layers of the stem. And if you think about it, when you look at a plant, what colour are the leaves? They're green. That's because of that chlorophyll pigment. And photosynthesis is how plants make their glucose. Okay, and glucose is what they need to keep going. It's also why we eat plants, because we need glucose for respiration. Lots of information there, but I'm just sort of explaining all the link ups. Okay, so they're found in layers in the leaves. and they have the vacuole in the middle, which we've already learned help with support and keeping cells in shape. And it means that the leaves can keep their shape. And in the summer, you may notice your leaves get a little bit wilty. That's because they lose some of the sap in the middle because they're losing water. So it's important for them to keep their shape and keep watered. And these are really important for photosynthesis. And I didn't mean to click on, okay? But key take homes there: chloroplasts, chlorophyll, photosynthesis, and they're in the leaves. Okay, moving on to my next one for you. So the root hair cell. Now this one I've seen before. People say, root hair cell, where is it found? On the head. They think hair, they think up. I want you to think of the other way. Ignore hair. I'll explain what that bit means. It's root. So roots in the ground, you're rooted, plants are rooted. And what do plants get from the ground? They get water, okay? So the key thing with a root hair cell is found in the ground, and it takes in water and minerals, okay? And they're really, really important for that. And they've got lots of tiny, tiny, tiny hairs on them, which is why they're called the root hair cell. And the reason they have those tiny, tiny, tiny hairs is it gives them a large surface area. So that means they can get maximum amounts of water and minerals into them so that the plant can get the water it needs and it can keep growing and photosynthesizing, okay? They also have mitochondria in them, and mitochondria release energy, and some of that's for something called active transport, which you'll learn about, which requires energy in order to get minerals in. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that one, but they have mitochondria to provide energy. They have a large surface area that's really key with the root hair cells, and it's to take in water and mineral ions, and they're found in the ground. Roots, ground, that would be my key thing. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, and that is the xylem. Okay, and the xylem, and I do like these biological words, xylem, root hair, but sorry, I digress. Xylem transports water and minerals from the roots, the ground, to the shoots and the leaves. It only goes in one direction, so they only go from the roots up the plant. They also provide support for the plant, so they help them keep the shape in the middle of the stems, and they're made of something called lignin, which forms a little cell wall, and then that dies and it makes these lovely hollow tubes that allow the water to move up and down them. And it also makes them nice and strong, so when it's windy, your plant doesn't die and it can keep its shape and keep taking that water from the ground up to the leaves and to shoots and little flowers and all those sort of bits. Okay, so xylem, the key thing is it's actually made from dead cells that form long hollow tubes, and they provide support and they transport water from the roots up the plant. Okay, and I'm moving on to my next one, which is the phloem. Okay, now the phloem transports dissolved sugars. Okay, so those sugars and glucose that the plant makes during photosynthesis get transported around the plant. They don't just go up, they can go down, they can go anywhere. And they're made from sieve plates, which form a tube, which I've got in this little picture here. And then they've got companion cells. And the companion cells provide support, much like your friends provide support for you and my friends support me. Then they're companions, they're my friends, but we call them companions because we like a fancier word. But the key thing with phloem is they transport dissolved sugars around the plant and are made of sieve plates, which form this lovely tube, and there's a little sieve plate here, and then companion cells, which provide them with support so they can keep their structure. Okay, and I know I've gone quickly again, but I'll remind you this is being recorded, so you will be able to watch it later. Right, and then we've got what am I? We've got another pole. I'll point out, by the way, this B picture, that is the hollow tubes of the xylem, just so you know. Just going to load up the pole. Dooby-dooby-doo. Got two more. I'm going to launch this one. So this one says, I am found near the top of the leaves. What am I? A, am I the palisade cell? I'm trying to move it slightly. B, am I the xylem? C, am I the root hair cell? Or D, am I a ladybird? So found near the tops of leaves, what am I? Palisade cell, the xylem, the root hair cell, or a ladybird? And while you're answering that, I'm going to have a little drink. Doobie 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 doo, meow 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 meow. Doobie doo. Okay, I'm going to do a 3-second countdown. I think this one's been a little bit more tricky. I know I did whiz through those ones, so don't worry too much. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and I'm just going to share with you. So 68% of you got the Palisade and you were spot on with that. Oh, bear with me, I'll just maximise that. So the Palisade cell is the one at the top of the leaf, and that's where photosynthesis happens. The xylem,s, they go up the stems, so they're sort of in the middle of the plant. And then the root hair one, as I said, ignore the word hair for the moment, stick with the fact that it says root, and then that will tell you it's in the ground. And then ladybirds, yeah, they're found on the top of the leaves, so I'll sort of let that one slide. Okay, but the key bit there I just want to point out is xylems go from the roots up to the leaves, but they're not actually found at the top of the leaves, they're sort of found in the stemmy bit. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing results and I'm going to just click on, and then I'm going to put the next poll up, and where we go. Okay, so last poll I've got for you lovelies. Okay, and I'm going to launch, and this one was I absorb water. Okay, what am I? And remember, I'm talking cells here. So am I a kitchen towel? Am I a sponge? Am I the root hair cell, or am I the phloem? And you know I'm after cells really, don't you? I was just being a bit silly with some of these. Felt like it's worth having a bit of fun. So I absorb water. What am I? Am I the kitchen towel? Am I the sponge? Am I the root hair cell? Or am I the phloem? I can see some raised hands. I'll remind, if you've got questions, chuck them in the box. And my wonderful assistants, Mr. Lamb and Miss McKinley, will answer them. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. Okay, I'm going to give it a few seconds. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end that one. And I'm just going to move my box up because I can't click on the share. And 70% of you, which is wonderful, it got the root hair cell absorbs the water, and think plants, roots absorbing the water. And then 24% of you thought the phloem. The phloem is dissolved sugars. So phloem I wouldn't ever put with water, xylem with water because it moves water around, but the phloem is dissolved sugars. So I just want to put that in there. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing results. Okay, now I'm aware I went very quickly through that. I'm just going to talk through the next 2 bits, then there will be an opportunity to ask some questions about what I've whizzed through, because I am aware I've gone super fast. Okay, so I've done another draggy drop. So we've got the Palisade cell, the root hair cell, the xylem and the phloem, and then I've got 4 boxes with 4 different descriptions. Again, the idea to drag and drop them and match them up with the picture. So one of them has got a large surface area for absorption of water and mitochondria. Which one would it be? One of them carries the dissolved sugars. Which one would it be? One of them carries water through the plant. Which one would that be? And then which one has lots of chloroplasts? Okay, so they're the 2 little tasks that I put in the lesson. And then this is my favourite task that I want to introduce you to. And I love seeing responses to this because you guys have got such creative imaginations. And honestly, when you get creative, it makes us science teachers really happy and we like reading them. So this is a little writing task, okay? And the idea is that there's a job opportunity for a specialised cell. Okay, within the cell organisation. So they're looking for either sperm cells, red blood cells, nerve cells, ciliated muscle cells, or maybe some other type of cell that feels like applying. And they've also got a sister company, which is looking for the root hair cells, the palisades, the xylem and the phloem. And you'll notice that some of these have got a higher salary. That means they are more difficult to describe in their CVs and their job applications. And those are the ones with the little stars. Okay, so the idea of this is you write a little job application form for a specialised cell applying for a job. And you send in your little CV, so you put it on these slides, and it's you saying what makes you the best to do that job. And I've got a little example, which I'm going to read to you. So this is my example from Samuel Sperm. Dear sir or madam, I am applying for the position of a sperm cell. I am really enthusiastic worker and full of energy as I've got lots of mitochondria. I also have excellent swimming skills due to my flagella, that's tail by the way, which would help me on my journey to the egg. I have a relatively big nucleus that contains lots of genetic material from my dad, and I have to admit that I have a criminal past as I used to use my acrosome to break into things, but I have turned a new page and I want to use the enzymes to break into egg cells. Please consider me for the job, Samuel Perm. Now, you will see that there's lots of information there that this one has, but it has mentioned the mitochondria for energy. It's mentioned the tail. They've called it flagella here, but that's the tail, fancy word. And then they've got about the nucleus, which has got the DNA, and then the enzymes. And I'm thinking I may have actually forgotten to mention the DNA and the nucleus, which is a really important bit of cell, so I'm glad I've read on this. So one of your little tasks, if you get time to do it, would be to write a little CV for a specialised cell. You may want to research that cell, find a bit more information than I've given you, but what would make it the best for that job? You could use the sperm, you could use xylem, phloem, root hair cell, any of those sort of things that you fancy using. Okay, and I'm going to leave that little slide up there, and I'm now going to say to Mr. Lamb and Miss McKinley, if we've got any questions, we would like to answer them. Hello, Mr. Lamb.
Hello, Miss. How are you? I had a question a little bit earlier, which was when do they have to hand this work in?
We are looking at next Monday, I believe, aren't we, sir? So giving a complete week for them to do the work after the webinar.
Yep, they do indeed have 1 week. And I've got another question. Do they have to do one plant and one animal, or a plant or an animal?
For the CV, sir?
Yes.
Just one cell. You don't have to do one of either. So if I go back to the list, you can either do one animal or one plant, or you could choose the more harder ones, which are the little starred ones with higher salaries. So it's up to you which one you choose.
Fantastic. Thank you, Miss. I'm just waiting to see if any more questions pop up in the box, because you've answered everyone's questions already. Some of the questions popped up, but as they popped up, you gave them the answer. So we've done very well on our questions there. Miss and I are still going to be here for a minute or two if you've got any more questions.
I'm going to stop recording now, sir.